afternoon, and welcome to Die Dragon Die presents the first episode of Nerd History Retro Gaming. I'm your host and player, Marty. You probably know me, or may know me from DMing a couple of other games on Die Dragon Die, the Legends campaign, and the Demon Watch campaign. I am kind of giddy with nostalgia right now, because I came across a Commodore 64 emulator, and I realized a long time ago I downloaded the files for 3 of my favorite RPGs when I was a young lad. And these were kind of like seminal RPGs that I played when I was really, really young. And I'm so looking forward to kind of delving back into them. That is the Phantasie series, PH instead of F. A multiple character role-playing odyssey released by Strategic Simulations in 1985, which kind of puts a little bit of a an age on me. I've got a few graying hairs. And it was released on Apple II, Atari 8-bit family, Amiga, Commodore 64, which was the first computer really in my household. I had been exposed before that to PET computers and a few other things, MS-DOS and MSX. It was followed by 2 sequels that were released in North America, Phantasie II and Phantasie III, Wrath of Nicodemus. I actually started out with Phantasie II. It just happened to buy it because it looked really cool. And I was digging around in my library in the back, and I found the original box for the game. So I have Phantasie II, the original box that this thing came into. Now I'm gonna open up this box because I want to show you what Commodore 64 games looked like. They came on floppy disks, and these are the larger floppy disks. Actually, there was probably one size larger as opposed to the smaller 3-inch disks. So there's Phantasie II for everyone. Now, of course, I'm not playing with these discs, but I was surprised. It's like one of the only Commodore 64 games that, for whatever reason, I love so much, so I kept in the box. And I'm also glad that I kept the box, because the game manual itself is actually really required to play the game. Now it's probably exists online somewhere in some walkthroughs, and we might actually look at one of the walkthroughs. But it has things like lists of the spells that you have. They're all numbered, and which levels your characters go get access to those spells, and then handy charts about how much strength or intelligence a particular race can have. So there's some handy charts that are inside this book, which I may have to make reference to while playing. So I'm glad that I've got this. Now, the rule set didn't really change between the first Phantasie game and the second Phantasie game. In fact, at the end of the first Phantasie game, when you complete it, actually you don't even have to complete it. When you start playing the second game, you have the option of importing your characters from the first game. So I thought that's really cool, and this is like 1985 that they're thinking of concepts like this. This might also be one of the first computer role-playing games where you're in charge of a party. Like Baldur's Gate is not the first one that did this. This may be the first one that did it. I'm not too sure. There's a bunch of them that came out at around the same time, a bunch of role-playing games, but it's definitely the first one that I played, and it is amongst the first. Now, this was a flagship game of of SSI. I think at the time flagship meant like sold 50,000 copies. So gaming has progressed quite a bit since then. The reason why I'm kind of streaming it under Dungeons and Dragons is that really, if you look really hard at this is kind of a mock Dungeons and Dragons game. So let me describe. You can try to you're leading a party of 6 adventurers. You're trying to defeat the evil Black Knights and the sorcerer Nicodemus. And you could choose from 6 character classes: Thief, Fighter, Ranger, Monk, Priest, and Wizard, from the races Human, Dwarf, Halfling, Elf, or Gnome, plus some random races that include things like Ogres, Trolls, Pixies, and Minotaurs, and that sort of thing, where all the cool stuff is. So not only could you play the stuff that was in the player's handbook, but you could also play these monsters too, which I thought was really, really cool. I read an interview done with the designer of the game. His name is Winston Douglas Wood. This is a few years back that he did an interview, and he called out that he really thought that the other games at the time were concentrating on one-person player. He wanted to have a party so that you allowed you to have like trolls and ogres and pixies and stuff like that in your party. So basically, this is a seminal game to like my nerddom and my lifelong love of RPGs. And I'm going to play through it, for better or worse, whether it makes good streaming or not. I'm going to play through this damn thing, because when I was younger, I never, well, there weren't walkthroughs, right? So if you screwed up one thing in the quest, it was very unforgiving. I also think that my disc didn't quite, somebody must have played it beforehand and kind of like triggered a bunch of the plot events, because I could never find the monsters in my version. Yeah, so basically think of your actions in game actually impact the save disc, and then, you know, it's hard to sort of recover from it. We're talking about floppies. Lamb chop, yeah. We were just waxing poetic about the past, and the fact that I still have my copy of Phantasie II. Of course, we're going to go back and play Phantasie I. Now, one of the important things about the game is that you need to roll up characters, and think of like the 3d6 model, where if you roll, hey, we've got Modron bot, so why don't we roll 3d6? So you roll 3d6, and I got an 11. But these characters really need to be really tough in order to do well in the game. There's only one part in the game where your stats can be increased, and it seems to be a really important aspect of having really strong characters. Not only do they have to be strong for this game, but you have the option of importing them into the second game when you start playing them. So I figured, and I always loved doing this, was creating characters. Now what's really annoying to get really high stats is that you can imagine the mechanic in the background, and we'll create a character in a second, is only allowing you to roll 3d6 for the 5 stats. To get 18s, math tells us 1 in 256 chance. To get 18s down 5 stats is 256 times 256 times 256 times 256 times 256. So you can imagine that you could sit there all day rolling up characters. That might not make for some great streaming. So I'm going to admit that I did that yesterday. So my Sunday was watching some NHL All-Star games and that sort of stuff, and just sitting there and rolling characters until I got this huge group of characters that the viewers and I can go through and pick to create our kind of put together to create our party that will go out and try to face these Black Knights and destroy Nicodemus and go into dungeons and loot and get treasure and that sort of thing. So, and then maybe what I'll do is I'll create a campaign journal. Like, just kind of like pretend it's a D&D session and kind of type up some notes about what happened during the game. So let me open a Word file and I'll just remind myself there. So, campaign journal. So we can actually kind of create a story around this game. Okay, so here is the prompt. I'm using CCS64, which is a Commodore 64 emulator. We're going to basically, at this point in time, you would put in a disk and load. Of course, there's no disk to be had in the virtual emulator, so we're going to load and run the first disk out of 2. This game typically came with an A side and a B side. We'll have to kind of flip between these virtual sides of disks during gameplay, if I remember correctly. I think all the dungeons are on one side and the wilderness is on the other. So let's open this up. So we should do the load quote star quote comma 8 comma 1 strategic simulations. All right, so we've got Phantasie and we're loading. Look how fast it's loading compared to Commodore 64. Ooh, look at these graphics. All right, so we could start in Pelnor, which is the name of the town where you're supposed to start in, or we can continue saved game. Given that yesterday I spent rolling characters, will continue save game. So we'll push 2 here. Oops. Oh, it won't accept my numpad, so we'll have to use this. Okay. The game is going to be laughable in graphics. All right, so this is not something I'm going. This is not something where I'm saying this is the best graphical game ever. However, it has some really seminal qualities to it from the computerized role-playing perspective. So basically, you're in a town, and this is the town, and you can hear the weird little beeps and boops from the from moving around. So there's a guild, an armory, a bank, a mystic. You could exit the town, but I don't have anybody in my party yet, so I don't think I can do that. And an inn. So because I've played this game before and it's all kind of flooding back to me from like 25-30 years ago, I'm gonna go to the guild and I'm going to add some characters. And basically there's this huge cadre of characters that I've named, and you can see their classes and which town they're in, as there are a number of towns in the world in this list. So why don't I show you the creation of this, because this list was empty at the beginning of the game. Maybe there were a couple of so I'm not going to add anyone, and I'll create a new character, and you can get the sense of like how long I spent yesterday doing this. So we're going to create a human wizard, a human, and I could do thief, monk, ranger, fighter, priest, or wizard. Now it's essentially going to roll 3d6 behind the scenes, and maybe some attributes that are adjusted for the race, and also the class. And then we end up with this. So 5 strength, 8 intelligence wizard out of kind of approximately 18 or 20. I've seen stats of some monsters go up to 20. Dexterity 17, constitution 15, charisma 18. Okay, so what do the stats do? Strength is kind of like the higher the strength, the better the weapons and armor and shields that you can carry. So a 5 strength would mean I could probably pick up a club and wear robes. So really this is not a valid character I see for long-term survival. Intelligence, well, for a wizard, intelligence is what you need to cast spells. So I would reject this character outright. Dexterity, I think, has to do with like ranged weapon attacks, and maybe a little bit of dodging and maybe some of the thiefy skills. So he's actually pretty good, 17 out of 18 here. Con affects your hit points. You really want a high con. It's kind of like Traveler or early versions of Dungeons and Dragons, that you really only get the bonus if you have a really high stat, kind of like 17 or 18. So the con's okay. Wizards tend to have low hit points to begin with. And then charisma, I originally remember ignoring this stat when I played before. Now charisma is actually important for training. This is one of the games where you have to train in between levels, and if you ignore the training, if you ignore charisma, it is prohibitively expensive to train your character. So much so that I've taken like crazy Gronk characters with three charisma before, and would not be able to afford to level up that character like at around mid game. So there's some importance behind it, and basically, so I'm going to say no to this, and do you want to create more? And I would keep on going. Human wizard, and this guy, oh, he's pretty good in int, dex, and charisma, but his con is 9, which means, he'll be a glass, he'll have a glass jaw and die right away. This guy's pretty good. 14, 16, 17, 18, 18. See, I would keep this character, weren't it for the fact that I already rolled like 1,000 times yesterday to build a party, or to build candidates for our party. So in the nerdiest fashion ever, I added all of the things that we rolled up to a spreadsheet. Yes, super nerdy. And I've got, let's just see how this one guy ranks up to the guys that I've already rolled that were wizards. So I rolled up at least 3 wizards, 2 elves and 1 human, and this guy's got a 14, 16, 17, 18, 18. I managed to get a 16, 18, 17, 18, 18. So the wizard that I've actually got already created is better than this dude. And you only have a limited number of spots in the guild itself. Just think of it as a pool of characters or a pool of badasses that you've got to create your party with. Now, you're only going to select 6, and hopefully you'll go through the game with those 6, but in the early levels, some of these guys are going to die. They only have a few hit points. So I'm not gonna keep this guy, but you can imagine me sitting here for hours just going, nope. I got to the point where I was doing this automatically and turning my head and watching TV, and a few times I turned around with like perfect characters, and I accidentally, because I trained my hand to go no, rejected them. So I'm gonna reject that one as well. Random allowed you to get sometimes weird races, non-standard races. I think I've created most of them, so they may not show up in this list. Of course, it keeps on picking some of the standard races of human, dwarf, elf, and gnome. See, gnoll. So let's see, a gnoll fighter. You know, that's actually pretty decent, but I've already got a warrior. I've already got a bunch of warriors. So why don't we, I guess, an elf thief. So I'm not going to keep on creating them. I'm going to have a look at the ones that I've already created. So one of the coolest things, one of the really neat races that you're able to create is a Minotaur. So here's my Minotaur fighter. He's super strong, has some pretty good hit points. So I'm going to add him to the party. So we'll add Galdar, and yeah, who else are we going to add? So I think I'm going to add a couple of wizards, but I don't want them on the... I'll add them at the end. We need maybe a priest, and I created a number of priests. It looks like Ballad, our dwarf priest, is pretty strong and hulky. So let's find Ballad. I seem to have... Yeah, that looks a little bit better. And we will add another warrior. I created an ogre named Chiba, so we'll add him. And this character I'm not too sure about, but I think we're going to try adding a rogue. His name is Puck. He is a sprite rogue. Yeah, a thief. And then we'll add our 2 wizards at the end, Zin and Zan. Kind of, I was thinking like yin and yang. Zin and Zan. Oh, we only can add 6. Alright, so there's training that you could do, but we haven't achieved enough experience points to train, so here's the message telling us that. There are spells. Let's just keep the starting spells that they gave us. I can create new characters, drop them, rename them if we didn't like the names of one, so feel free to... we can rename characters as we go. We can have a look at them. We can purge them, which actually permanently deletes them, so we're not going to do that. We'll get out of the... the guild. So we formed our party. One thing I noticed about the game, right, kind of in replaying, is that there's no like well, what the hell, why am I bothering, right? And then I looked at the green book in the rule book, and it actually describes the world a little bit more. So what is it that we're trying to do? I'm not going to read the I'm not going to read the whole thing, but there's sort of a conversation, like, at the beginning of the book, sort of a preamble. It's this conversation between a wise person and an adventurer who came to this town that we started out with. So I guess we're supposed to read the module, or read the instruction book first. "Black Knights? What about the Black Knights?" demanded the adventurer, interrupting once again. "Patience," roared Thorley, his fist banged against the table. "I'm getting there. Since the great invasion by the evil sorcerer Nicodemus, the Isle of Gelnor has been terrorized by merciless Black Knights." and on and on. And basically, it basically says you should go out and try to find the Black Knights. You're bound to run into them if you travel around Gelnor, which is the name of the word. A few words of advice. Whatever your success, it is rumored that the Black Knights are spawned in a fortress somewhere in Gelnor. Godspeed, and may your sword be swift and the gods be with you. Alright, so there's this evil guy named Nicodemus, and he has Black Knights, and he's basically the evil tyrant. You know, shades of Tolkien basically are being felt here. I also remember vaguely that there's like Olympian pantheon of gods and that sort of thing. So the designer must have been influenced by Greek mythology and Tolkien. Wow, sounds like Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, so let's go to the inn. I know that we have some equipment, and you know, you're resting at the inn. The inn, you can find them in the wilderness, but the inn is the only way that you get your hit points and your magic points back. Aside from healing spells and potions, which are really rare. Healing spells, well, if you've run out of magic, you can't cast them. Now, there is a really weird mechanic where you have to go to the inn to distribute your gear. So, and every time you go to the inn and cast distribute, everyone gets stripped of all their gear, and then you have to choose where the gear goes. Now, here are the strength points of the gear, so the axe has 9. If I didn't have a certain strength, and I don't know if it's exactly 9 or not, but if I didn't have a certain strength, I wouldn't be able to wield the axe. So I'm going to put the axe on my fighter, I'm going to put another axe on my fighter, and then I think my priest is pretty strong, so we'll give him an axe, and then our thief is kind of the next in line, and then Zin will get a sword, I guess, and Zan will get a small hammer. We've got an extra club for some reason. I'll sell the club. And then ringmail. Let's put the ringmail on the thief. I know that the thief has a low amount of hit points. So let's have a look at our party. I actually didn't include Daedalus in our party. Whoops. We have a rogue instead. I don't have his stats. Oh, yes, I do. Puck. Let's copy him to our party. He only has 6 hit points. So, compared to the wizards that have 7, I'm worried about his survival. He's super quick. It might be handy to have a thief when we go into the dungeons, but I'm worried about his survival. So I'm going to put the best armor on Puck that we have, which is ringmail. It's kind of lame, but we haven't adventured yet. Leather. Along the same token, let's put our best armor on our wizard, or one of our wizards, and then everyone else gets robes. We're very poor adventurers, which I guess is good motivation to go out and, you know, kill monsters and take their shit. And then we've got 6 small shields, so we'll just divvy those up. I won't go through such exposition with everything every single time we do it, but all right. So we've done that. Let's go to the Mystic. Now the Mystic is going to tell us that our score is 2 and that we're novice adventurers. So I guess the Mystic kind of tells you how powerful you are, to help you, I don't know, feel good about yourself, maybe. I think it might be, so that you could try to gauge how strong you are compared to some of the areas that you enter. And I think there's a spell that tells you how powerful the creatures are in an area. So we can do that. The bank. We can withdraw money from the bank. Okay. Everyone's got about 200 gold. Let's see if we could afford anything in the armory. That's better than our... Nah, it looks like the weapons we have are pretty much the same. There are some scrolls. Now, the scrolls actually have story and plot to them. I think back in the day... Let me see. Is it still in the box? Oh, I could have swore I printed these things out. I think it's the only thing I printed out on my Commodore 64 was the damn scrolls. I'll have a look for them later. Why don't we just kind of try to find the first dungeon and kind of do an exploration, and maybe in the next part we'll start diving into the plot. We know that there are Black Knights out there, and I think that's probably enough. So, yeah, we've explored all that this town has to offer, the town of Pelennor. Let's save our game, so we don't have to do that again. Ah, interesting. Shares. Oh, yeah. So, what's weird about the experience and gold system in here is that I could choose to give more XP. It's kind of like you pool up your XP from adventuring, and then when you come to town or try to leave again, you divide shares as you wanted amongst your party. So I could actually give 0 XP to somebody and like all the XP or a really high share to one person, which is kind of interesting. I think they added this mechanic because your characters die, and just pretend you had a bunch of 10th level guys running around the wilderness, and now you need to fill in some guy in your party who's level 1 as a mechanism to try to catch up those guys. I also, I've got 2nd edition D&D in my head, but I think the classes go up at levels at different XP amounts. So we'll find out. So for now, I'm just going to go 1 share each. Of course, we didn't get any XP. I think this is just a little bit of gold for whatever reason we've got in our pants. Oh, from the club we sold. All right, so we formed a party. We're not too sure why we're doing this, but Galdar the Minotaur, Ballad the Dwarf, Chiba the Troll, Puck the Sprite, Zin and Zan the Elven Wizards, well, I guess they're brothers, are exiting the city of Pelennor to go and explore. Aha! Enter a town. Enter. No, we just came from there. We want to go adventuring. All right, I think some of these things that are on the map, I think that's an inn, and that might be a dungeon. I do have a world map that somebody had created, and I think there's something up here. I don't know, maybe we'll take our first foray to just sort of explore that peninsula. One of the mechanics of the game is that for each square that you move, your characters age. Like, time is a limiting factor. And this is one of the reasons why I went through a few parties in my younger years, because I was just exploring around, and I basically tried to go to every hex. And then I got to about near the end stages of my game, and some of the younger lived races in my party started dying of old age, or like retiring of old age. So then I restarted the game, and I really liked the character creation quality of the game. All right, so let's start moving around. I'm using directional arrows to move around. I spot sleeping monsters. Do we want to leave? This is just outside of town. No, we want to attack the monsters. Oh, look at all the skeletons. Wait, why are skeletons sleeping? Weird. Okay, so we encountered a bunch of monsters that were sleeping. We investigated, and now we're in a fight. How nice. It gives us a status. The yellow means we're okay. Blue is sleeping. Gray is dead. So there are some combat options. We can beg for mercy. We can threaten them to maybe scare them to go away. We can greet them to make friends with them. We can fight them, or we can flee. I think we're going to fight them and see how this goes. Now, I don't want Galdar to parry. I want him to thrust, I guess. Thrust, attack, and slash. I think the higher level you get, the more attacks you can get, and slash is highest, but we only have a few... we only have, like, our first level. So I think all we can do is thrust. We can also lunge to the back row, because there are rows of people. And I think Zin and Zan are going to cast spells. Now, there's this huge list of spells, and I created a cheat sheet for myself. The spells are numbers, and you need to know the numbers of the spells in order to know what it is that they do. So, for example, here, I want to know Fire Flash, because that's like a combat spell. And this is one of the things why I have got multiple wizards, because I wanted to explore the magic system. Zin and Zan both know Fire Flash, and it's spell number 5, and it takes up 1 magic point, and they know it. I put the numbers in here, meaning what level they need to be to learn the next version of these spells. Ballad also knows a healing spell, which is spell number 1. So we're just going to have to remember 5. So I'm actually going to have them, because we're so close to town, I don't mind using up my magic points. I'm going to cast spell 5, and Zan is going to cast spell 5. And this is kind of like Final Fantasy, like a precursor to Final Fantasy. You pick your options, and we'll go on fighting and see what happens. Ballad hits a skeleton, and it dies. Yes! I love the noises of this game. And the little icons of these guys are so cute. Alright, Chiba's attacking. Puck is lunging to the back row, or to one of the back rows. And Zan is casting a spell. Now all the skeletons, well, they woke up, so some of them might be, yeah, we caught them by surprise. So we're going to fight again, and I think it remembers, yeah, it remembers what our orders last were. So I'm going to keep these same orders. And the next round, we got the drop on them because they were sleeping. There's something relaxing about a turn-based game where you can kind of sit back and watch a little bit. It's not as twitchy as other games are. But definitely we've come a long way since here. If you can put this side by side with, say, like a Skyrim. Oh, they tried to run, but we caught them. I'm going to keep our options the same, but I'm not going to waste magic. Hopefully Puck will hit that guy in the back row. There's Ballad, our dwarf. The second guy from the left. Cool. So we killed the sleeping skeletons. We got 166 XP each and 43 gold. Of course, we could adjust the shares through distribution later on. All right, I'm feeling confident now. Let's go wander into the wilderness some more and see what else we can find. The brave adventurers explore the peninsula near Pelnor. Yes. Now... Uh-oh. An encounter. See, sometimes we could be sleep... What the hell? Oh, we caught it. We surprised it. That's what happened. Alright, I clicked off screen, and that's why I wasn't updating. Okay, so there's a viper. I really don't know how tough it is, but it looks really big. We're just gonna thrust our weapons into it and see what happens. Okay. Gotta realize that. Okay, we can handle a viper apparently. I think it missed us a bunch of times. Alright, confidence raising. Sometimes you find items after fighting monsters, but I'm going to show you what I'm looking at. There is a map that somebody provided a long time ago, kind of as part of a walkthrough, and I'm curious what this dot is, so let's go find what that dot is. And then we'll try to go to the intro dungeon. There is a small temple here. Huh, that's it. Okay, we'll go touch the water and... Now, going into the water is bad, because I think you have to make swim checks to survive, or to not take damage. So we're not going to go swimming, even though it looks really inviting with the crazy Atari graphics, or the crazy Commodore graphics. So we're going to head back. See if we can make it all the way to that inn. So our brave adventurers explore the peninsula near Gilnol. Okay, we made it all the way to the inn. Let's see how much this costs. Inn? Stay? Sure. Oh, it didn't cost us anything. Well, except for time. Magic increases? What does that mean? Are there game... Is there a... Huh. Can we cast spells here? I wonder how we break into a menu. I thought that there were spells you can cast while you're wandering around. Let me see. Let me just see here for a second. I want to know what the command is. Because I think there are things you can do. Like, how would I drink a potion if I really needed to? Adventure commands. No. Counter commands? Wilderness. Town menu, other counter commands. This feels like it's important to know how to access the menu. Let me just try tapping. So, oh, I just hit enter. Okay. Alright, I can inspect, use potion, health. Let's have a look at health. Ah, okay. So it said our magic increased. So apparently by using magic and sleeping, our magic increased from 7 out of 7 to 8 out of 8 for Zan, which means he can cast more spells. You know what? I'm going to be kind of a nerd and keep track of that. So Zan has 8 magic points. Just like how I just want to understand how, you know, progression works and that sort of thing. So we can cast a spell. We can move. We can inspect. All right. So that the enter key. That's fine. So we've rested. We haven't saved our game, so that could be bad. But we only had 2 encounters or 3 encounters. So let's take a peek at the other map. Oh no. Puck is on watch and hears the encounters. Okay, so we got surprised at night, and only some of our guys are awake. Or did everyone wake up? No, it looked like everyone woke up. Okay. We'll fight the Bantiers. I don't know what Bantiers are. They look like big green blobs. We'll just attack with our swords. Oh no, Chiba, you dumb ogre. Hit. Galdar will hit. Our little minotaur. Oh no, we took a damage. Huh. I'm thinking that it might have been a bad idea to put all your weak characters on one side. I kind of all, like Galdar, Ballad, Chiba, they're all kind of our strong characters, and then to one side, and then all of our weak are to the other side. I wonder if that's a bad idea. Because I don't know if Galdar could reach the guy way over here. There might be some sort of like positioning. Next time we go to town, I may want to spread those guys out. Oh, the monsters ran and successfully ran. But they left behind a little bit of gold. Okay, 1 damage. Yeah, let's take a peek at the other map just to see what it looks like. So we're going to walk along the road like a bunch of chumps. I like the celebration dance that they do in... Alright, so... It's another map, and I kind of remember that encounters get a little more beefy the further you go. Like, each area has its own... So, and that's a town, but I'm not too interested in going to the town yet. I want to try out our first dungeon. You are near a small door set into the hillside. Maybe it's a hobbit hole. Enter a dungeon? Yes. Insert dungeon disc and press a key. Okay. I think this is where we flip sides. And here's where we might screw up. Load C64 files disk drive. Oh, okay. There's a directory. And side B. Okay, we did that properly. Alright. Good day, sir.
Hello.
Hello.
Was ist los?
We are playing the
Okay.
nerdiest thing that I could find. So
All right.
this is Adam from Die Dragon Die. He's one of the players in 2 of the campaigns, and I guess he decided he was going to stop by.
I had this text saying I'm about to do something nerdy, and I'm like, what?
All right, so let me do a quick recap for Adam. So one of the seminal games in Marty's role-playing history is a Commodore 64 game called Phantasie and Phantasie II, and they came out with a third one, but I never played. I loved this game so much as a kid that I kept the box from the game.
The VC thing is covering your face, your beautiful face.
Let me get rid of my VC. Give me a second. There we go. So I kept the box from this thing. This thing is 1985. Now inside, so it's one of the first role-playing games where you could create your own party. It's like it's a not a multiplayer, but a multi-character role-playing game, computerized role-playing game. You have 6 stats: strength, int, dex, con, and charisma. You have classes like wizard, fighter, priest, and thief. Monk and ranger, but I don't tend to create those types. And then what's really neat about this is that not only did they have the player handbook races, but they had like troll and sprite and pixie and kobold and that sort of thing. So
this was my equivalent to this, but I am younger than Marty, so it was 89.
Right. Monkey Monk,
Magic
how's it
Candle.
Let me just stick you up here somewhere where you're not really disturbing.
So don't block the chat.
Yeah. So
I'm only going to be here for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's fine. So basically in character creation, you roll 3d6s down the row. Like that's kind of the mechanic that's going on in the background. And you can carry these characters not only through this game, but through the next game as well. Like you could import your characters. And if you don't have good stats, you would your characters suck and die. Also, every square that you visit is a day, and your characters actually age. So I remember back in the day trying to explore every nook and cranny of the game, and having around end game your characters like dropping off because they're old age.
They're too old.
Right.
No, Bortho.
Right, so basically yesterday I spent we'll say 4 or 5 hours rolling characters to get, like, the near perfect
Good
group.
stats.
Yeah, and here's the group that I ended up with was, with modifiers. Puck, the Sprite Thief, Galdar, the Minotaur Fighter, Zin, the Elf Wizard, Zan, the Elf Wizard, Chiba, the Troll Fighter, and Ballad, the Dwarven Priest. And they've all got awesome stats. Not perfect stats. I think the only perfect character I rolled was Ballad, the Dwarf Priest. But I built this many characters. Let's see. Let's do a quick count.
Are you
here.
ready for an adventure?
Yeah.
See, this is where new people who just, like, the learning curve on some of these old games was so huge.
Yeah.
Because if nobody tells you that you need to roll your character a bunch of times so you get good ones.
No, you need, like, it's like you are, you will be punished for having shitty characters. You're not going to realize it right away, and you will be rewarded for sitting there and just rolling and rolling and rolling and rolling. I decided that wasn't stream worthy, so I created, like, this huge cadre of characters. Now, the one I'm really worried about, because I think he's, like, one hit at first level away from dying, is Puck the Sprite. He's only got, like, my wizards have 7 hit points. He's only got 6. My fighter's dealing, like, 11 damage per swing. So if I run into something that's, like, as tough as my fighter, he's dead. There's no negative hit point kind of thing. He's dead. And we're way too low level to resurrect. So we might have to go back to the guild and fill our things up. Okay, we've wandered throughout the wilderness and we've got to a dungeon, and I flipped the disc because the emulator is basically emulating this. A nice floppy disk.
Floppy disks.
That has an A and B side to it. Because a little
like a 5.5-inch floppy.
Yeah, because a little nibs on the side. And then there's a separate disk for saving your characters. So basically, I successfully flipped the disk, which we're going to have to pay really close attention to each time.
That is, you pulling out old school floppies.
Yeah. Yep. There are like three or four games that I really loved on Commodore 64. One is Phantasie II. I actually didn't play the first one, so this is the first time I've played it all the way through. Phantasie II and Phantasie I have the same rule set, so I'm pretty familiar with it. Do we want to take the exit? No, we just got here. Alright, so there's a bit of a dungeon not fully explored. Okay. And we're the little nib at the top. Not the greatest graphics ever, but there's some cool stuff going on in here if you want to look at the evolution of role-playing games. First, you get to control an entire party. Second, there are non-standard races that are involved.
It's really not bad. I mean...
it has a lot of D&D mechanics to it. Now, spells are a little complex because you have to know the number of the spell in order to cast it. So I created a nice little cheat sheet of, like, who knows which spell. So,
you created a spell book.
Yeah, I created a spell lookup sheet. You also have to be careful when you're leveling up. Anyways, we can talk about that later. So I'm going to start exploring the dungeon. A passage with torches on the wall. Okay. An abandoned guard room. All right. Now I'm not too sure which way to go, so I'm gonna always go left.
Alright, I'm going to run upstairs, so I'm just going to watch the stream as opposed to be part of the stream and enjoy the show.
That's fine.
I've got your back, man! This is awesome. I want to watch the stream.
Alright. Oh no, an encounter! Oh, look at all the orcs! We're so dead. We're so doomed. Oh no. Okay, so we're gonna fight the orcs because that's what you do when you encounter orcs. Maybe I may be a little cocky at this point. Galdar is going to thrust in the first row. Ballad may have to break out his healing spells. Remember, it's spell 1. Chiba, the ogre, is going to thrust in the first row. Puck is going to lunge in the back row. Zin is going to cast the fire spell again. because I think we're just going to blow up the orcs and then run. Yeah, we're going to cast our spells. We're going to go balls out with all the encounters until we get a little XP. I think our goal right now is to get enough XP to go up to 2nd level, which I don't remember how much it is. So, we'll go on fighting. Galdar, go! Now, this ranked kind of combat is kind of neat and ordered and turn-based. This is all kind of like setting ourselves up for Final Fantasy and other games. In the evolution, if you will, of RPGs. Okay, the orcs are missing. This is a good sign. Our dwarven cleric hits an orc and kills it. This dude right here is our sprite that only has 6 hit points, so we're really concerned about him. Our wizards are pretty squishy as well. Alright, only Chiba's hurt. He's got a little bit of damage, and I think we're okay. So we're going to keep on fighting. Things seem to have gone well in the first round. Okay, those fire spells seem to always attack the back row, so I think the next time a fire spell's casted, it might hit somebody in this row. My Gronky ogre. 1 damage for the fire spell? Bullshit. Yeah, I may not want to have all of our fighters to that left-hand side. I'm starting to realize that we're killing everything on the left flank and everything on the right flank isn't being killed, which is kind of asking for... it's asking for it. I think we'll cast our spells one more time. 11 damage, yeah. Roast, you orcs, roast! Yeah, these guys are always standing at the end of the fight. At the end of the round, then our wizards are... No! Chiba. Okay. Chiba took 4 damage there. Our brother wizards are casting spells like a bunch of crazed evokers. Oh, the monsters run! And we caught up to them. Okay, Chiba's hurt. So I think for this round, I'm going to have Ballad cast a healing spell on him and see how that works. We could also do this outside of combat, but I want to try it in combat. So we'll fight. I'm going to stop casting those spells to conserve our mana. And Ballad, our cleric, is going to cast a healing spell, which was spell number 1, if we recall from my cheat sheet, on Chiba. And then we'll continue fighting. Because Chiba's our striker tank. Yeah, Galdar's kind of our striker, and Chiba's kind of our tank, who can also do damage. Do the fighters have spells to use their magic on? Yes. So, great question. Let's just see what... So, fighters... at 6th level, get a spell called Quickness. At 9th level, get a spell called Strength. At 12th level, have access to a spell like a greater version of Quickness. And then at 15th level, get a greater version of Strength. There's also a spell that can be cast in the Wilderness that I think only fighters get. And this is basically to tell you how powerful the monsters are in the region. Think of it as a power of, like, you look around and, you know, smell some like monster dung and, you know, have a look. So that's available at 3rd. Right now they don't have any, like, they haven't learned any of these things. I don't know if they are going to be learning spells, though. They need a good int to learn. You could keep on trying. Let's see, our fighter Chiba has a decent int at a 13, max for a troll. Galdar, who is our fearless leader Minotaur, only has an int of 9. So he might have a difficulty learning it, or we might have to try many times in training the spell to him. Alright, so we've got a passage with torches on the wall. I really want to know how Chiba's doing, so I'm going to look at our health just to make sure that we're not... See, that heal spell didn't really go off, did it? No, we killed those orcs too quickly. So I'm gonna try casting the healing spell out of combat. Let's see how this works. So cast. Who will cast the spell? Ballad will cast spell number 1 on Chiba. And it doesn't tell us how much he healed, so we'll just go to health. Okay, he got healed completely. Oh, Ballad did cast it, because that should have only taken 1 mana. So there's a chance we rolled really low. Okay, I don't know what the thief spells are, because I didn't actually plan on taking our puck in there. So I didn't do the spell planning for the thief. Maybe I'll do that off stream. I'll just take a glance at the handy book that is 30 years old. Yeah, he doesn't get any spells till 4th level, so we don't have to worry about it for now. At 13th level, he gets the most powerful fire spell in the game, which is weird for a thief to have. Sure. Let me just do a transition here to get the cool music. Alright. I had some fun. We're going to continue to... Can we look around? I guess I didn't do anything. So, we'll continue to move. There's an encounter. What the hell are these things? Why are there so many of them? They're coyotes. A bunch of coyote uglies. I don't know how tough these things are. They look kind of big, so we're just gonna swing. We're gonna stop casting healing on him. We're gonna swing for the fences and hope for the best. This is a risk. Ooh, they're tougher than 6 hit points. They're tougher than 9 hit points. Okay, now I'm scared. Stupid, we're gonna die to coyotes. Oh god, that took a hit point. Chiba took 5. That could kill the sprite if he gets hit. No. Maybe we shouldn't have gone into the dungeon at 1st level. Maybe we should just wander around the wilderness a bit. No! Chiba, no! I think we need everyone swinging. And I'm gonna have Zan cast a fire spell. Oops. Eh. Oh, this is risky. Yeah, I should have power leveled in the woods. I should have gone killing boars. Oh, we made them run. Well, they weren't worth any gold. I think it would behoove me. Okay. I'm gonna heal Chiba again. Apparently Chiba, our tank, is doing his job. Ballad will cast spell 1 on Chiba.